Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and I'm bringing you a new series. Over the past couple of years, many of you may be familiar with Wrath Games. He has been on a journey to solo as much of Final Fantasy XIV as possible under a strict set of conditions. Now, I love taking on challenges like this, having done No Junction Final Fantasy VIII, No Sphere Grid Final Fantasy X, Level 1 Final Fantasy XV, and Kingdom Hearts, New Game Minus Final Fantasy XII, I mean, the list goes on. I've also soloed my fair share of creative, extreme, and savage fights over the years, so I'll be throwing myself into the gauntlet of Final Fantasy XIV Solo. And with that, welcome to my Final Fantasy XIV Ironman series. So first off, what is Ironman? The term is derived from old school RuneScape, where it's used to denote a character that cannot trade with other players or use the game's marketplace, the Grand Exchange. This makes quest completion and character progression driven solely off the player's own accomplishments and forces the player to interact with the world to a much greater degree to forge a path forward. For Final Fantasy XIV, the term is a bit more obtuse. While not being able to trade with others or use the market board surely hurts, it also kinda doesn't. Final Fantasy XIV is a game built on rails, so quests often provide all the rewards you need to actually progress through the story and tackle bosses. Vendors provide tons of basic materials, and it's plenty easy to just unsync content and blast through it once you're over-leveled. So, the goal of Ironman in Final Fantasy XIV is to take the game off the rails as much as possible. For that reason, Ironman also more so means that you just put as many self-restrictions as you can personally muster for a challenge like this, and we'll be roughly following Wrath's rule set as he explained it to me. This means we will have the following restrictions. No trading or market board, obviously. No vendor purchases, which there's definitely a few things that are going to cause problems there. No quest rewards, although of course there's going to be concessions to that. And of course, content must be soloed without duty support or trusts, and must be level synced when possible. Now, like I said, there are some concessions to these rules when necessary. Some quest rewards are required to complete other quests, especially early on. You know, they'll give you an earring and say, wear this earring to talk to the next NPC. We need that reward. Some make classes playable, like the basic weathered weapons and tools that you get from class unlocks. Some are so minuscule they just don't matter, or they're kind of a pain to manage getting rid of early, like the handful of shards you get from the crafting class unlocks. You can't even properly split shards as far as I'm aware until you have a retainer, and I won't have access to that for quite some time, so we're just going to let ourselves have those shards. And of course, the Gil EXP from quests are unavoidable, especially when unlocking key features. This is the general vibe though. If it's possible, these restrictions must be adhered to. This means a lot of gathering, a lot of crafting, and a lot of problem solving. With the rules explained though, I think it's time to begin our journey. Now bear in mind, while I'm very familiar with Wrath Games, I've spoken to him and I have a few ideas of a few random problems that I may run into throughout the way. I haven't actually watched Wrath Games series, and I plan to keep it that way. I'm really trying to figure all of this out for myself, so comment sections, I don't want to hear what other people are doing to get through sections. I really want to do the problem solving for myself, so I figured it's worth having that little disclaimer there. Obviously, that doesn't mean I won't have discussions with people if we're in the middle of it, but it's hard to know the difference between someone who's suggesting something because they've already seen it done versus suggesting it because they just thought of it themselves. It's hard to know, so please bear that in mind too with this series. Now, how to start the game is a pretty important choice right off the bat. We have 3 city-states to choose between, and this choice affects how we'll progress early on. Unfortunately, Limsa Lominsa is instantly out as a choice. Early on, we will need an item level 5 helm to progress the main scenario. Unfortunately, Limsa Lominsa is landlocked until level 15 when you gain access to the airship as part of the MSQ. Yes, even the boat to Thanalin won't work until the airship is unlocked. So while it has armorer and blacksmith, its only gathering class is fishing. And honestly, I wish they would just let me make a hat out of fish. Then I would definitely start there. But we can't, so we just don't have the materials to craft a headpiece. If you really wanted to start here, you can make a concession. You could buy a headpiece. If you have like a Moogle reward or something in your Moogle mail, like a Helm of Light, you could use that. But I'm also not using the Moogle mail items. Guess I should have said that. Basically, I'd rather not start making concessions immediately at level 5 because then it's easier to just make excuses later. So I'm not starting in Limsa Lominsa. This leaves Ul'dah and Gridania. Between the two, I opted for Ul'dah for a handful of reasons. Goldsmithing and mining should be handy early on for making a helm, I figure. Weaving would be tough without botany, but fortunately you can just walk over to Gridania at any point and unlock that plus the crafters that are over there. So I actually have plenty of options. In that same vein, Gridania would work too, but I do have another reason for Ul'dah. My starting class is the other motivation, as I am starting as a gladiator. Picking a tank is an obvious choice. I don't think I'll be on tank for the entire thing. There's bound to be challenges where I want to use something else. Most people would suspect I would start as Marauder for that reason, or go Marauder as quickly as possible. But healing capacity early on is basically nothing. We'll worry about Marauder after we can start getting Warrior to 54 plus for raw intuition, and actually be synced above 50 to use it. But for now, Gladiator is going to be solid. Shield Bash might make a small difference as well, though I doubt it. Now starting off seemed like it'd be simple enough. I progress through the MSQ, get the Ethernets, and make a rush to level 10 on my Gladiator. Doing the level 10 class quest is required to grab the crafting and gathering classes through the armory system, so I quickly blasted through my hunting log to get a bit of extra EXP, and along with the level 1 and 5 class quests, it was easy enough. Oh, and I should probably disclaimer this as quick as possible before I forget, but when I'm streaming Final Fantasy XIV, I'm very rarely just doing one thing. As you'll notice on the left-hand side of my screen from any of my live stream footage, there's like a Final Fantasy themed little minigame going on over there. That's actually a fan-made project from someone by the name of L-Body, and it's basically a Twitch-integrated Final Fantasy AFK game with, classes, jobs, cards. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. I'm not going to explain the whole thing, but I'll include a link to it in the description, but it basically is just my Twitch chat is playing that while I'm doing this. I figure if I'm going to do long grinds, they might as well have something to do while I'm doing it. I also just don't be surprised if you see me doing my RuneScape Ironman stuff on the same screen as well. Yeah, no, it's going to be like an ADHD screen for some of the footage that you're going to see for some of this stuff. Speaking of EXP, leveling methods are a bit scarce early on, very early on. This will open up very quickly. The MSQ and basic side quests are fine, so long as I toss any meaningful rewards. One element I racked my brain over, though, was Fates. Now, Fates can be completed solo, but if anyone joined me in the middle of one, was it really solo anymore? While I'm streaming, definitely a no-no, since it's likely chatters would come and assist even if I asked them not to. But even outside of that, I largely made the decision to leave them out. This was tough because in old-school RuneScape, where the Ironman moniker gets its name, there are tons of activities that you partake in that are group activities. I mean, Wintertot, Temperos, Guardians of the Rift, Fishing Trawler. Also, I could spend a whole video talking about that alone. Ironmen still do these activities to earn personal rewards. Is that no different from just doing a fate on my own, and if someone else joins, so be it? I may reconsider this at some point, but frankly, I don't think fates will matter at all for progressing, so I don't think it really needs to be considered past this first video. Trust me, I have a much deeper path ahead of me. Once I was level 10, I got mining and goldsmithing and had to see how to best get a helmet for the MSQ. As stated earlier, we need an item level 5 helmet at least, and since we can't use quest rewards or vendors, I'll have to craft one myself. The first recipe I noticed was brass spectacles, which I could equip at level 13, so just a few levels above that 10 requirement I already had. However, it requires a clear glass lens, which is a level 28 alchemy recipe. So I started working on that, and then I realized I had a different problem altogether. The clear glass lens would require Silex, which was from level 30 rocky outcrops in southern Thanalan. Level's not the issue though, it's a quarrying item. This requires the mining secondary tool, and I can't get one yet. So I had no choice but to look further down the list and see what else I could make. Fortunately, I didn't need to look too much further to find brass circlets. There are tons of these, each with different gems. There are like 6 different recipes, so I decided to make one of the level 19 recipes that used lapis lazuli, which I could already gather quite easily. The actual headpiece was also level 18, meaning I'd have to do some questing and hunting logs to get up to the requisite level. Fortunately, neither of these elements posed too much of a challenge. Heck, I even took the time to walk over to Gridania and unlock everything there and make some progress on those crafters and gatherers. Eventually, I'll need them all anyway, I figure. So with my headpiece complete and my gladiator leveled, I trucked along, blasting through the next several chunks of MSQ until I unlocked the airship and gained access to Lenosha. All was going well, and then the next obvious hurdle was presented to me, preparing for the first 3 dungeons. Sastasha, Tam-Tara, and Copperbell Mines may not seem like obstacles, but remember, I'm tackling these dungeons solo and with no NPCs to help. I would need weapons, armor, accessories, and ideally food and potions to make it through safely. This meant a long crafting and gathering grind. But I thought to myself, is there another way? Can I get gear way ahead of time without crafting and gathering? There are some options, and I will be exploring them in future videos, but for now, I had just one to go investigate. Levequests were an available option for potentially getting some nice armor to save some crafting time. Now, I know what you're thinking. You said you can't use quest rewards. And you're right, I can't. Not to mention, I wouldn't want to. Levequest rewards are usually normal quality and not very useful. However, Levequest completion isn't what I wanted. I wanted the silver coffers that spawn during Levequests. Yeah, every time you spawn a Levequest, there's a chance that a chest can spawn. Now, a bronze chest contains consumables like potions, while silver chests always contain ethereal armor. This is that pink armor. It's basically equivalent to high quality in terms of stats, but then also has more substats, randomly rolled substats. So the plan was start a Levequest, look for a silver chest, then abandon and retry and search again. So I did that, and this happened. Oh, that's a silver chest, for sure. Okay. So we also need to hope it's a piece I can use. It is a wand, which is unfortunately not a piece I can use. Yeah, not the most useful drop. I mean, I guess I could try it as Conjurer, but I'd have to go level it. Unfortunately, other than that and a few potions, my luck had failed me. So yeah, I went back to crafting and gathering hard. I did everything I could, and at the end of day one, I had a collective level of 112 across all classes. Okay, so I'm up kind of early, really early in the morning right now. But I had some stuff I wanted to get working on before my stream later. I won't have all the time in the world to do this today, but I figured might as well make some progress. First and foremost, I have to go over a few. One, I had a day off the day before I'm recording this, and I basically just did crafting all day. The crafting grind has been very real, and I'm hoping to be prepared to go into dungeons later today. I think I am. I do have some things, like I said, I want to try. Some things that might help. Some things that I think is a good idea. But first, I got something I got to do. All right, so after briefly doing the math after my day off, which I guess I was doing this most of the time, so I don't know how much of a day off it was. I'm at a total level of 208. I'm trying to keep the total collective level kind of calculated on most days. I don't know if I'll update it every single time I log in or every single day I log in versus just trying to keep track of milestones or at the end of videos. But it's because this is inspired by RuneScape and the total collective level of everything is a pretty common thing there. I figured it was worth it. It was worth the look. So a couple things I want to do before stream. One, I want to do my hunting logs and see if I can get my gladiator to 25. I can't unlock paladin, but there's a new armor set at 25, and I think even synced down. That's going to be better for the dungeons. And two, I would like to have some food. So I definitely want to I want to see if I can level any culinarian. I don't know how much luck I'm going to really have with that, because I can't buy anything from the vendors, so getting materials is going to be not the greatest. There is also, I mean, to be fair, my fishing is also at 0. So it might just be a case where I have to do these two this morning before stream. But at the very least, I also want to go do Levequests. I had bad luck on the first 6. And I want to see how many do I have now? 9? Okay, I'll put 9 now, and I'll have 3 more later, probably before I go in. So we're going to pop over to Gladiator, which, hilariously, most of my Gladiator gear is still, like, crafting and gathering gear. I've got, like, one decent piece. And I've got... Wait, I have a shield? There we go. Is this the right... Is this right? Yeah, this is right. I have the materials to make another sword. But we're going to go try that real quick. While I'm on my way down there, I did actually craft some stuff in preparation. Okay. I didn't do that on purpose. I promise. I just made them until I didn't feel like making them anymore. But, you know, that's nice. But anyway, I'm here for the Levequest, so let's see if I get lucky this time. Oh, come on, silver chest. Be kind to me. Oh, wait. I think that's... Yeah, that's a tank body. All right. I'm going to throw that on right away. Okay. I'm going to... Hold on. Maybe this idea isn't as brilliant as I thought it was. Yeah, this is the... Okay, it's been a while. I didn't know if these are the HQ values. Effectively, that's an HQ level 20 body. I guess it doesn't... This doesn't really do me too much good. I think I'd have to be a much higher level for this to actually pay. Like, I need to be doing quests that were, like, well above where I am in the story right now. I think what the real play is we leave the rest of the allowances for the time being. But, yeah, I think we move on to plan number 2, and that is I got hunting logs to do. I want to see how close I can get to level 25 before I go into the dungeon, because like I said, I'd rather make the level 25 armor set than the level 20 armor set if I can. So I'm going to look through these and see what we can do. So this is actually enough. It's over by a few thousand even. Of course, the problem is killing level 30 Epkalus is actually, without gear, is actually not easy to do. Because of the sardine attack that they have, unless I actually have gear for the Epkalu, that might actually be too tough. We're going to give this a try. We're going to see if I can do this morning. I think my time might be better spent actually just getting Culinarian up instead of that. Maybe I could try this on stream. I think we should do Culinarian right now. We're already here. We need to see how Culinarian's actually going to look. Oh, I can do table. Oh, never mind. Yeah, I think we'll be fine. All right, let's get to it. See, here's the thing. I think leveling Culinarian's going to be really easy. I think making any amount of food is going to be a royal pain. Like, table salt's great and all, but, you know, I'm not just going to eat salt going into the dungeon. There's also tomatoes and everything out here, too. Lettuce. I might do me good to actually gather a bit of all this stuff. Definitely one of the other tediums on my day off was shards. Like, great, I get a handful of shards from every quest unlock. One of the only quest rewards I allowed myself to use. Because shards are... Well, I mean, they're shards. It's not the end of the world to have some shards. But that being said, I'm going to have to gather a lot of shards. Let me tell you. There's going to be no shortage of shards. Actually, the problem is there will be a shortage. Because I need to gather them all myself. Alright, so I spent a little bit of time leveling Culinarian, and I realized there's quite a few recipes I can't make after doing some research. I thought, oh, I'll make chicken and mushrooms. It's got 3 vitalities. That's the first one. And I think I can get chicken breast, but I don't think I can make smooth butter. Because I think buffalo milk does not drop anywhere. I did a quick Google search, and it just says it's bought from vendors. So that was off the table. Grilled warm water was fine. I can gather this, but I have to level fishing. Well, I'm going to have to do that eventually anyway. I just kind of was like, okay, what can I do now? Walnut bread needs buffalo milk. Same problem. And smooth butter. And then I was just kind of going down. I'm going to keep leveling, but worst case scenario, I'm going with the Final Fantasy XI Classic. The meat Mikabobs. So the myth kebabs, we got Mikabobs. These were pretty easy. Dodo tenderloins can be farmed. Table salt you make right at level 1. Tomatoes, paprika, all available in Lenosha. All of this just available in Lenosha. I can level off of it. I can use it. I haven't really been using water shards either, so I'm going to make a bunch of these. See what the 21 to 25 range has food-wise, and if not, this will probably be my food of choice. I'm also considering weak paralyzing potion. So jellyfish, how do you say that? Kanida? Is just C silent? Nita? Whatever. The jellyfish stuff, I think, drops in Eastern Lenosha. Would be... Mobs there are probably like 30 to 32. So I might be a little tough without making my armor. But I could, theoretically, make paralyzing potions. The problem is I'm pretty sure they will end up putting my high potions on cooldown. We'll consider this in the future. But at the very least, there's that. But yeah, we're going to make these meat mikabobs, and then I think I'm all set. There's one or two other things I want to do before stream today, so I'm going to do those too. Later that day when stream came, I had finished making my supplies, including a full set of the level 25 armor and various accessories. So the first 3 dungeons were up. Sastasha, Tam-Tara, and Copperbell. Remember, we're going through these solo, level synced, and no duty support. And if there ever is echo, we're silencing that. And unless it's impossible, that's what we're trying to do. But honestly, I wasn't that worried with these 3 dungeons. As a tank, my damage taken isn't too high overall. Enemies don't have that much health at this point in the game. I have stuns, I have interrupts, and I brought food and potions, so I'm feeling pretty good. Before we dive in though, how about a fun dungeon fact? While all 3 of these dungeons were locations featured in 1.x in some variety, one of them used to go under a different name. Sastasha Sea Grot was instead called, how do I pronounce this? Shpoche? Presumably the cave's name prior to the overabundant influence of the Sahagin and Captain Madison. It was instead a cave rumored to be filled with Mistbeard's treasure, and players could wander around killing monsters for keys to open coffers for plundered loot. You know those plundered armor sets that you get? Yeah, those. The Coerls, Jackals, and Giant Clams were all still prominently featured. Going into Sastasha, I knew there were really only a couple of major threats. There's like one trash pull with an Orobin before the first boss that would do a little bit more damage, but fortunately kiting mobs to buy time for the potion timer works really well in lower level dungeons, especially given the abnormally low move speed of a lot of our Realm Reborn trash mobs. This could also be employed against bosses that usually require sprint to do consistently. Sastasha was also my chance to try out some various old world tech that can be occasionally useful in mitigating damage, though with very high executional demand and a bit of RNG. The first was auto attack canceling. This is the act of getting just barely in range of an enemy as they prepare to use an attack, most often an auto attack, and stepping back out of range before the attack can actually execute. So you're basically outranging an auto attack in a very split second. If you've watched any deep dungeon runners, sometimes you'll notice that they're kiting mobs around a room, and the mobs just kind of stop for a second, but they don't actually attack before they stop, and then they resume. It's effectively the same thing, though doing it entirely on purpose is oddly harder than doing it by accident in Palace of the Dead. More often than not, I found that I would miss GCDs. Obviously, I'm missing auto attacks being out of range, and sometimes, you only skip 1 out of 2. Sometimes you don't skip any. The ping variance changes the execution a lot, and I'm playing with more ping than I really ever have. Not by much, but it's still more than I'm used to. And doing it on purpose just seemed like it wasn't worth the effort, but I'll have to shelve that for another time. Maybe it will be useful. The other method is spin strat. This is actually an old meme strat where you basically loop around an enemy super fast, trying to stay behind their hitbox as they rotate to prevent them from performing any attacks at all. It can be used to stop auto attacks entirely, but it can even outright stop tank busters or mechanics from even beginning, locking a boss AI from doing anything at all. It was most famously used in a video of turn 9 of the Binding Coil of Bahamut to kill Nail without ever leaving phase 1. I think it might have been unsynced still, like it might have just been like a quick 40 to 50 second kill. At the very least, it may have been an item level 130, but I still remember it very well, and if I find it, I'll put it on the screen. Doing this solo is insanely high on the APM or actions per minute and incredibly demanding on the focus, so much so that it should only be practiced and considered as a last resort. Heck, Palace of the Dead runners used to use this against the Behemoth on floor 180 when it was a lot harder to kill on different jobs. So yeah, really only by necessity. You may still see me trying it from time to time, but it's not essential to anything we're doing. And I have one more strategy, but we'll talk about that in the next dungeon, as I didn't really need it for Sastasha. Really, I just had to stay on top of my self-healing, kiting if I needed to wait for my high potion timer, and then prioritize enemies like the archers or boss ads. Honestly, the hardest hitting mob in the entire dungeon felt like the Reaver right after fighting Captain Madison to get that second key. The Coerl wasn't really much, I did have to kite it around a little bit, but as the first boss, super easy. Captain Madison did do a decent amount of damage, having 2 ads and then summoning more ads in the second encounter, and then having the fast blade attack in between the autos really adds up. It's pretty frequent that bosses or enemies in a Realm Reborn have instant tank busters that they fit between their auto attacks, so damage can add up really quick. Fortunately, for things like the final boss, they do often also come with like a cleave or an aimed AoE or something like that. You can use that time to run away from the boss, which means they have to run at you, which buys even more time for cooldowns, for potions, but that's a trick that's really only going to work for the early game super consistently. I will say that on the final boss, my favorite thing to do is to try to stun the boss and then actually open the things to get rid of ads from spawning. But I found that the ads basically just required me to kite the boss and the ads in a circle and shield lob the entire time. I mean, I probably could have stood toe-to-toe with them, killed them a little bit faster, and then kited for my high potion timer, but it seemed like kiting was going to be an inevitability for the last boss, so I just opted to do that instead. Tam-Tara, on the other hand, was a bit different. Tam-Tara features a lot of caster-style mobs, and this allows me to execute a third mitigation tech, one that's a little bit more reliable, spell canceling. Monsters in a Realm Reborn don't turn as fast as newer monsters, so it's actually entirely possible to walk behind them as they finish a cast and cancel it altogether. I used to do this a ton back in A Realm Reborn itself, but I found I was super out of practice here. I don't know if it's just because my ping's a little higher than it was before, and so I don't know the timing as well as I used to, or I just am just not as good as it from not doing it that often. With a bit more time, it won't be that hard, but when you do get it to work, it basically renders caster mobs in these older dungeons useless. Fortunately, Tam-Tara also has a ton of pillars along its walls, which you can use to line of sight their casts as they come out. I had to fall back on this in one of the final trash pulls when the execution of my spell cancel tech was just way too poor, and I came very, very close to dying. Fortunately, the final boss wasn't too bad, especially since all the adds are so weak. It does drain life and it does cast spells, which I did again struggle canceling. I just really didn't do that good at that tech in this, but honestly it just wasn't that big of a deal. The demons were definitely worse. I wasn't really prepared to interrupt their End Thunder buff, so the amount of damage they dealt with autos was super high. It occurs every 30ish seconds and is used immediately upon spawning, so you can have an interrupt for every single one, and interrupting it should be a top priority if you try this for yourself. Even without that, they do a tank buster, which definitely hurts, but they do also do a casted attack, which buys a little bit of time again for that high potion. Then came Copperbell Mines. I actually tried running through and leashing all of the mobs. Because of the mine shafts, and I guess because of the elevators, a lot of mobs in this dungeon have a really short leash range because they don't want people messing around with that stuff. So what you can actually do is outright skip almost all of the mobs in the dungeon just by running and then having people who aren't the tank pick up a few fire sands and do all that stuff. They could just render all the mobs useless, or you could just gather them all pretty reliably and have just kind of a normal big pull at the end of the big section. Solo, that didn't really work. So instead, I tried some other tech that most people just won't ever use in a dungeon. I kind of forget that a lot of old world mobs, in fact, a lot of overworld mobs as a whole, actually use aggro types in Final Fantasy XIV. Yeah, it's not just a thing in Eureka or exploration zones. It happens here too. For mobs like the Gigas, after I wiped and I was running back, I just ran behind it because it aggroes sight. And then there were the elementals. Elementals I didn't know. Were they going to aggro magic? Were they going to aggro proximity or sound? So I tried this. Are you sound or are you proximity? Well, I got my answer. I guess this will be a better test. No, they're sound. They're definitely sound. Not gonna lie, I'm pretty surprised that worked, but it was a fun little thing. For the trash leading to the second boss, leashing the trash proved a lot more useful there. I could just kill the bombs to get the ash to drop, and then leash everything else and avoid killing it, so that was a nice little thing to be able to do. The only trash that was actually a problem was the Gigas right before the end. It hit insanely hard, and the pull starts with 2 additional trash mobs. Without much healing or defensive cooldowns, it hurt. Although, I've said things are dangerous, but dying doesn't matter. I die in this Copperbell Mines. If I just died and came back and just fought the Gigas on its own, yeah, it would still hurt, but it would also be way easier. So, I don't know. I guess I kind of like trying to do some of the harder pulls as they are, but yeah, this isn't hardcore. It's just Ironman. So, just don't worry about it, I guess. It's easy. You'll just waste a little bit more time. Speaking of time, that's really why it doesn't matter. These dungeons are taking me about half an hour each, and, that's well below the amount of time I have to do a dungeon, but as we get to the higher levels, I suspect that will become more of a problem, the time aspect specifically. The bosses here do all have tank busters, but they also have tons of long downtimes of major damage, so they were all pretty tank and spank. It's the most modernized of the 3 dungeons after the rework, where they have mechanics where they just sit there and cast a really long ability. So while I did use a few high potions on the bosses, compared to anything else that I did, these were probably the lowest stress bosses that there were so far. And with that, I have completed the first 3 dungeons in A Realm Reborn in this challenge. This is all kind of a formality. I didn't expect any of this to really be that bad, maybe a hiccup here or there, and honestly just a lot of prep time. We got to try out Levequest and see how those would work for maybe getting us some quicker gear to do some faster main scenario progress, which is really going to gate us towards some things in the future. But with these 3 dungeons done, unfortunately, it opens something up that is going to dominate at least a portion of pretty much, not all, but a lot of my playtime throughout the remainder of this challenge. It's here it comes. Here it comes. Say it. Say it. Palace of the Dead, now accessible. And that is where we will leave off with our first video in our Iron Man series. Thanks everyone for watching. Let me know if you're enjoying the series in the comment section of the video below. And remember, these videos are not coming out super consistently. They are deliberately going to be several weeks apart, maybe even a month apart, but you will see them occasionally uploaded on the channel. Expect them normally towards the end of the week as well, as that's what I'm aiming to get this one out. But if it's done, it's done. And especially if it's been a while since the last one came out, I'll try to get the next one out, you know, as soon as it's done, pretty much. But I hope everyone's been enjoying. Thank you to everyone for supporting, and I'll see all of you in the next one. Until then, take care.